It was a quiet place, LaPorte, Indiana, a town of rolling fields and simple lives. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other, or so they thought. On a sprawling farm on the edge of town lived a woman named Belle Gunness. She was a formidable figure, strong and imposing. A Norwegian immigrant who had come to America seeking a new life, a better life. She had arrived years earlier, a young woman named Brynhild Paulsdatter Sturseth, leaving behind the rugged shores of Norway for the promise of the American dream. And for a while it seemed she had found it. She married, had children, and eventually, after the convenient and sudden death of her first husband, she bought this farm. It was her kingdom. But dreams, as we know, can sometimes curdle into nightmares. Belle's life in the quiet Midwest was punctuated by strange and tragic events. Fires, always fires, seemed to follow her. Her first business in Chicago, a candy store, went up in flames. Then, part of her home burned down. In both cases there was an insurance policy, a payout that helped her along. Her first husband, Mads Sorensen, died on the one day his two life insurance policies happened to overlap. The official cause was an enlarged heart, but a relative would later say Belle had confessed to poisoning him for the money. These were whispers, of course, unsettling coincidences that no one quite knew how to piece together, not yet. After Mads's death, Belle moved her family to the LaPorte farm. She soon married again, this time to a local butcher named Peter Gunness. But happiness, if it ever existed, was fleeting. One of Peter's infant daughters from a previous marriage died mysteriously while in Belle's care. Not long after, Peter himself met a grisly end. Belle claimed a heavy sausage-grinding machine had fallen from a high shelf and split his skull open. A terrible freak accident, she said. The coroner, a man who perhaps didn't look too closely, initially accepted her story. But Peter's death, like so many things in Belle's orbit, left a lingering question mark in the air, a shadow of doubt that was growing longer. And so, Belle Gunness became a widow once more. A wealthy widow, it turned out. She was now the sole owner of a large and prosperous farm. To the outside world, she was a hard-working, if unlucky, woman. A single mother trying to make her way in a man's world. She was a pillar of the local Scandinavian community, a woman who seemed to embody the immigrant success story. But beneath the surface of this pastoral life, a much darker story was taking shape. The farm, with its big red barn and quiet fields, was becoming something else entirely. A place where lonely men would arrive with hope in their hearts, never to be seen again. With her farm secure and her finances bolstered by yet another insurance payout, Belle Gunness began a new enterprise. Not in farming, but in romance. Or at least, the illusion of it. She started placing advertisements in the Lonely Hearts columns of newspapers across the Midwest. Her words were a siren song for the unattached and the hopeful. She described herself as a comely widow, the owner of a fine piece of property, looking for a good, reliable man to share her life with. A partner, a husband. It was an irresistible offer for men of a certain age, many of them fellow Scandinavian immigrants who had worked hard and saved their money. The letters poured in, dozens of them. Belle would correspond with her suitors, her words weaving a tapestry of warmth and promise. She was a master of manipulation, telling each man exactly what he wanted to hear. She spoke of a peaceful future, of a comfortable home, of companionship in their golden years. But there was always a condition, a little test of their sincerity. To prove their intentions were true, they had to bring their life savings with them. They were to sell their assets, liquidate their accounts, and come to the LaPorte farm with cash in hand. It was to be an investment, she explained, in their shared future. So they came. One by one they arrived at the LaPorte train station. Well-dressed men carrying heavy suitcases filled with their worldly possessions. Men like John Moe, who brought $1,000 with him, or Andrew Hageline, who traveled all the way from South Dakota with his life savings. He told his brother he was going to Indiana to marry a wealthy widow. It was the last anyone ever heard from him. The pattern was always the same. A man would arrive, perhaps be seen in town with Belle for a day or two, and then he would simply vanish, gone, as if he had never been there at all. When friends or relatives inquired, Belle had a ready-made story for each disappearance. The man had changed his mind, she'd say. He was a wanderer, not ready to settle down. He had taken some of her money and left in the middle of the night. Or perhaps he had gone off to visit relatives in another country. Her explanations were plausible enough to keep suspicions at bay, at least for a time. The farm was isolated, and Belle was a powerful, intimidating presence. No one dared to question the widow of Laporte too closely. The men kept arriving, their pockets full of cash and their hearts full of hope, walking straight into a trap from which there was no escape. The whispers around Laporte were growing louder. Too many men, too many disappearances. Andrew Hagelin's brother, Azel, was not a man to be put off by excuses. He wrote to Belle repeatedly, demanding to know what had become of his sibling. He refused to believe Andrew had simply run off. His persistence was a problem for Belle, a loose thread that threatened to unravel her entire murderous tapestry. The pressure was mounting. It seemed Belle knew her time was running out, that the walls were finally closing in. She needed a way out. And for Belle, the answer, as it had been so many times before, was fire. In the early morning hours of April 28, 1908, a fire tore through the Gunness farmhouse. It was a terrifying blaze, consuming the wooden structure with incredible speed. By the time neighbors and the fire department arrived, the home was little more than a pile of smoldering ruins. Inside, investigators made a grim discovery. They found the bodies of Belle's 3 children, huddled together, and nearby, they found the headless body of an adult woman. A woman everyone assumed was Belle Gunness. It was a tragedy, the townspeople said. The unlucky widow had finally met her own grim end, taking her children with her. The case, it seemed, was closed, but not everyone was convinced. The local doctor who examined the headless corpse noted that it was significantly smaller and lighter than the powerfully built Belle, who was known to weigh over 200 pounds. And where was the head? A search of the ashes yielded nothing. Then, a former hired hand, a man named Joe Maxon, came forward with a strange story. He said that just before the fire, Belle had sent him on an errand to deliver a letter. She had also asked him to bring kerosene to the house. The pieces didn't fit. Was it possible the fire wasn't an accident? Was it possible the body wasn't Belle's at all? The arrival of Azel Hagelin, still searching for his brother, changed everything. He insisted that Belle had murdered Andrew for his money. He convinced the new sheriff, a man more skeptical than his predecessor, to search the farm. He pointed to a soft patch of ground in the hog pen. He had a feeling, he said. So they started to dig. What they unearthed would horrify the nation and turn the Gunness farm into a place of legend. It wasn't just one body they found. It was the beginning of a harvest of death, a gruesome testament to years of cold, calculated murder hidden just beneath the soil. The digging continued for days. Each shovel full of earth seemed to reveal a new horror. From the soft ground of the hog pen and the rubbish pits, workers pulled out burlap sacks containing dismembered human remains. They found the body of Andrew Hageline. They found John Moe. They found Ola Budsberg. They found the remains of Belle's own foster daughter, Jenny Olson, who had disappeared years earlier, after telling a classmate she had discovered her mother's dark secrets. In all, they officially identified the remains of at least a dozen people. But the true number was likely much higher, with some estimates reaching as high as 40 victims. The facts of the case were chilling enough. Belle Gunness was a serial killer who used her charm and the promise of love to lure men to their deaths. Her motive was simple and brutal: greed. She would poison them with strychnine-laced coffee, or kill them with a blow to the head as they slept. Then, she would dismember their bodies in her cellar, a place the locals would later call her murder dungeon, before burying the pieces in the hog pen or around the property. She was a butcher of men, a black widow who spun a web of deception from which no one escaped with their life or their money. But what of Belle herself? Did she die in that fire? The mystery of the headless corpse was never definitively solved. A local dentist claimed a piece of dental work found in the ashes belonged to Belle, and a jury officially declared her dead. The reality, however, remains shrouded in doubt. The body was too small. The head was never found, and Belle, who had proven herself to be a meticulous and cunning planner, had recently withdrawn most of her money from the local banks. Had she murdered another woman, planted the body along with her children, and set the fire to fake her own death? This is where fact blurs into legend. For decades after the fire, sightings of Belle Gunness were reported all across the country. People claimed to see a woman matching her description in Chicago, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles. A woman named Esther Carlson, who died in 1931 while awaiting trial for poisoning a man for his money, bore a striking resemblance to Belle. Was it her? We will likely never know for sure. And so, the story of Belle Gunness endures, a dark American folk tale, a chilling reminder that some living quietly right next door, their secrets buried just beneath the surface.